lack of access to capital. So GLOW helps the entrepreneur find the capital. You can join GLOW by going to www.globalleadersorganization.com and sign up for a basic membership, which is a free membership. You can join for free, or you can join on a premium membership. And if you join today in the premium membership, we will put your name in a drawing for VIP tickets into the Super Bowl Village.
I don't think
Yeah,
so.
you know what? I think it's recording me here, so I think we're okay. And you've got. Let me just tell you about our next event, which is with Kevin Harrington, who was a shark on Shark Tank as well. He's the inventor of the infomercial. He's our next speaker for our Lessons in Leadership. That's going to be on November the 7th in Orlando. But if you can't make the Orlando show, you can come in here to this Microsoft store and you can watch it live and ask Kevin questions directly. This is what we're going to do today with Mark. So some exciting things are happening. We're going to be doing this with Microsoft and the Global Leaders Organization every month. We'll be putting on a new event with a thought leader such as Mark. And we're excited. We'll go ahead and get going with the show. We're going to have Jeff Creeley, who is an Emmy Award-winning journalist that's going to be interviewing Mark. But we'll go ahead and get into it now and let Mike he's going to go ahead and make the introduction for Mark Cuban.
All right, Josh, I'm going to let you take Josh. I'll let him talk for me.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Josh Chappell. I'm one of the assistant managers here for the Microsoft Store. We're really excited to have each and every one of you out to this event this morning. We're glad that you can make it through the traffic, the Susan G. Komen race, which is super important. But I'm glad that you're here with us this morning. So I have the awesome pleasure of introducing Mr. Cuban. So a little bit about Mr. Cuban. Since the age of 12, Mark has been a natural businessman. Selling garbage bags door to door. The seed was planted early on for what would eventually become long-term success. After graduating from Indiana University, where he briefly owned the most popular bar in town, Mark moved to Dallas. So we're glad you're here in Dallas. After a dispute with an employer who wanted him to clean instead of closing an important sale, Mark created Micro Solutions, a computer consulting service. He went on later to sell Micro Solutions in 1990 to CompuServe. In 95, Mark and a longtime friend, Todd Wagner, came up with the internet-based solution to not being able to listen to Hoosiers basketball games out in Texas. That solution was broadcast.com, streaming audio over the internet. In just 4 short years, broadcast.com, then AudioNet, would be sold to Yahoo for $5.6 billion. Wow. Since his acquisition of the Dallas Mavericks, go Mavs, in 2000, he has overseen the Mavericks competing in the NBA Finals for the first time in franchise history in 2006 and becoming NBA World Champions in 2011. They are currently listed as one of Forbes' most valuable franchises in sports. In addition to the Mavs, Mark is chairman and CEO of AXS TV, one of ABC's sharks on the hit show Shark Tank, and an investor in an ever-growing portfolio of businesses. It is my pleasure to introduce Mark Cuban.
Morning. Good morning. Well, I got to tell you guys, I couldn't sleep last night. As a journalist, I was at Fox 4 for many years, and I got to interview presidents. But I was nervous. I couldn't sleep last night. So at 1 o'clock in the morning, I'm getting up, and my wife is like, "Where are you going?" And I was like, "To prepare." I said, "I'm preparing for Mark Cuban." And she says, "You get back to bed." So,
you were watching the baseball game. That's what you were doing.
I got to tell you, before we get into some questions, my first memory of Mark, because we all have memories of when we first heard Mark's name. So I'll try to speak up. I'm a soft talker, but
there you go.
When I first heard Mark's name, it was on the ticket, because I was listening to the ticket, and it was the morning he bought the Mavs, and many of you probably remember this. I just remember being mesmerized by listening to a fan, and it was like a 12-year-old boy who loved basketball had just bought the Mavericks. And then
a lot of people think I'm still a 12-year-old.
I don't know if it was later that day or the next day. I came into Fox 4, and Mark is sitting there, and Mark is giving that big smile, that Mark Cuban smile, and I just was, as a Mavericks fan, I was just so excited because finally we had a rabid basketball fan who was owning the team. And can we all just give it up for Mark Cuban? Thank you.
Amazing.
Well,
Thanks. I appreciate that.
You've given us so many wonderful memories and more to come. How about
Hopefully,
those
a lot
Mavs,
more.
right?
We're going to be a lot better this year, so it's exciting.
Okay, so some here don't know your story of how you started out as an entrepreneur as a child. What was your first business?
My first hustle, I guess, my first grind was repackaging baseball cards. So I literally would go buy baseball cards. I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I'd repackage them so there was always a Pittsburgh Pirate in one of the packages, right? And then I'd go down to the park, literally, and I'd set up and I'd just sell them. I'd save up enough money to buy a couple packages, and then I'd resell them, buy some more, and the next thing you know, I could afford a baseball glove or whatever. And so, yeah, and the funny thing is, once I got the confidence to learn to sell, that was the key, because once you can sell, I mean, you're set for life. You always have a job. There's always somebody who needs you. And once you start your own company, if you can't sell, you have problems. If you can sell, you've got an opportunity. And so I've just been somebody who's always hustled. And like I said, once I got that confidence as a kid to sell, it got easy from there.
So I would think that you were blessed to be born without money. Because
a lot of people would question that.
But you had to learn hustle. Right?
Yeah, no question. Yeah, my dad did upholstery on cars. My mom had odd jobs. We were middle class, as middle class can be. I remember talking to my dad after I started having some success, and he never made more than $40,000 a year in his life. And so, yeah, I mean, my dad would scream at me if we left the lights on too long, and my shower was too long, and you tried to air condition the whole world, close that goddamn door, and So yeah, it taught me a lot, and you're probably right. It certainly made me appreciate it, and those are things I'm trying to pass on to my kids as well.
So you were a late bloomer. When you were in high school,
I was a champ. Yeah.
You had thick glasses. You weren't the slim.
Well, yeah. I want to tell you a quick story. So, like I said, my dad did upholstery on cars, and we were never about flashy or showy or anything like that at all. And so I was playing baseball in the park with a bunch of my friends, and I went running after a ball, trying to make that over-the-shoulder catch. And at the same time, a bicycle was coming down the road. Bam! And the handlebars chipped my 2 front teeth. Well, anybody else in a normal family, they'd go get white caps, right? But those were too expensive. So literally, I had 2 caps on these 2 teeth that were aluminum, and it didn't stand out too much, right? Like, I'd go out with my friends, every time I'd smile, my friends would be like, ah! So yeah, it was a little bit different upbringing.
It just occurred we were the same person. I grew up in Detroit. My dad was a minister. We couldn't afford the Izod shirts. Remember the Izod shirts when we were kids? So all I could afford was the Izod socks. Oh. So I cut the little alligator off this.
But did you really?
I did.
So when I first got to Dallas, and I had to wear a suit, and I couldn't afford them, so I bought my 2 for $99 suits. The kind that were polyester and stood up in the corner on their own. But because I wanted to be cool, I was living in the Village. I had 6 guys in our 3-bedroom apartment, and they just tore down that part of the Village. I was really bummed out because it used to be a great memory. But I used to buy fake polos, so I'd buy them for like $6. They'd last 6 days, but I had a polo,
I still do.
And there's a store. There's still the store. I think Forest and Preston, called Retreads.
Yes.
And that's where I bought my first non-polyester suits were all used. My first business shirts that weren't fake were all used, and so I still have some of those suits. So. Yeah.
Okay, a quote from your dad. Today is the youngest that you'll ever be.
Live like it.
Live like it.
Yeah.
It seems like you live life with a sense of urgency all the time.
Yeah, I try to have fun. I mean, his point always was, And you realize that as you get older, that when you turn 21, that was a big milestone. Now you're getting older, right? Then you turn 25. Oh, it's a quarter of a century. You hit 30, and like, oh my God, I'm 30. Then 40, and then as you look back at 40, you go, 30's not that old, you know? And you have 50, 40's not that old. And you know, we have a sense where we tend to think whatever age we're about to turn, whatever that zero is looking us in the face, that's old. You know, when you look back 10 previous years, you realize I'm still young, right? And if I start to act like I'm old, I am old, right? And if I start to, you know, feel like, okay, I'm supposed to feel different because I'm older, then, you know, you slow down. And so that's kind of a lesson my dad left me. You know, just enjoy it. And, you know, my dad died in '92, and, you know, at 87, we were going to Vegas, and trust me, he wasn't the most politically correct guy. So, you know, he lived like a young kid up until the time he couldn't.
There's an oldest saying, the one-day novel. I'm going to write a novel one day, and that one day never comes. You're a big no-excuse guy.
Uh-huh.
Give us some encouragement about if we have a dream, if we have something we think we want to do, you know, give us some words. How do we act on that?
You know, everybody's got that idea, right? That's probably why a lot of you are here. And you get all excited about it, right? You get that feeling in your stomach, like, this is it. And you talk to your friends and like, oh, I love it. I'll buy 100 of them. You got to do this. You got to do this. Then you go on Google and you're like, nobody's done this. And you start to think, okay, what's next? Now, you go two different ways. Oh, I've got to raise money or find this or do this or get somebody to mentor me. Or just get off your ass and just try it. You know, the best businesses are the ones you start just with your own personal energy. You don't have to go out there and, you know, all of a sudden make it big right off the bat. You know, when I started my first real company, Micro Solutions, because I got fired. And I was still living 6 guys in a 3-bedroom apartment. I mean, literally, I didn't have a closet. I didn't have a drawer. I had a stack. And I had one towel, you know, and it was just like, all right, just got fired, and what am I going to do? And so I was in just like this. I would go into the PC stores of the day, and I was like, look, I know how to do, you know, spreadsheets, and I know how to connect PCs into local area networks, and I know how to do database applications and write some software. Would you refer me people? And I literally would just bother the shit out of people in these stores and give them my phone number and say, you know, when you get somebody, send them my way. And I was a pain in the ass, but I got one. And then the first one, they wanted to buy this piece of software. Well, I had no money to buy the software and resell it. It was a company called Architectural Lighting. And I told them, I'm like, look, I got nothing. But if you front me the $500, the software costs $250. If you front me the $500, if it doesn't work, I'll walk your dog, I'll wash your car, I'll clean your clothes, right? I'll do whatever it takes, right, to make it up to you. Fortunately, it worked, and, you know, it wasn't a perfect installation, but it worked. And then I went from there, like I said, hounded people in stores, just went out and got referrals. But, you know, like I said earlier, I had confidence to sell. And so that enabled me to get going. And so the one skill set that you're going to need when you start your company, sales. Selling. Because the one fact that I can give you that no one can contest, no company has ever been successful without sales. And for all the problems you'll run into as an entrepreneur, the one thing that cures your problems, sales. Now, they got to be profitable, right? You know, you can't like make it up in volume. You know, it cost me $250, I'll sell it for $249, and everybody will like me. But yeah, so I mean, when you just get going, when you get to that point, there's like a little line right in front of all of us when we have that idea and we think we're ready to start a company, and most of us don't take that step. Oh, you know, I got the kids I got to worry about. I got this. I got my car payment. Everybody's got something, right? The difference is, what do you do? Now, if you think you have to get somebody else's help to do it, you've already lost. Especially now. I mean, literally, I used to go and just sit and camp out in bookstores because I couldn't afford the books, and I'd read books sitting on the floor. But now, with, you know, on your phone, you have access to everything. You have access to all the information you need. The only thing you need to add to that is hustle and sales. You know, and you don't have to go big. You're not starting a car manufacturing company. You don't need $1 billion in capital costs. keep it small. I mean, I tell my kids, sell something you can make. Sell something that you can sell your time. I think the biggest thing, like when you look at Uber and the on-demand economy, that's just an arbitrage of our time. What is it? We're selling, somebody else values their time a little bit more than ours, and we'll sell our time to them. And that difference is your profit. And if you can sell your time, if you can sell some skill, if you can just sell, you can start a business.
Talk about debt and taking out a loan for a business. Is that dangerous?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of taking out loans for a business. Just like, even though on Shark Tank we give people money, if you watch, I always tell people that it's vulture capital, it's not venture capital, right? When you take my money, you might think you work for yourself, but you effectively work for me. When you take out a loan, you might think you work for yourself, but you effectively work for the bank. Because what it comes down to if the bank says you're out of business, you're out of business, right? So you have to know going in that you can figure out something that allows you to do it with sweat equity. Sweat equity meaning the sweat on your brow, the effort you put in, right, in order to create that business. That's always the key. If you look at some of the biggest businesses ever created, from Microsoft, when Bill Gates and Paul Allen, rest in peace, Paul, you're a good dude, man. When they started out, yeah, I mean, they weren't poor by any stretch. I mean, Bill's parents were well off and Paul's were okay. But they just started with their own will, right, writing software, and just started grinding and grinding and grinding, and were smart. But they sold, and everything they did in the early days was about sales. And so any business you start, what are you selling? Can you sell it profitably? And can you do it on your own? Those are the greatest businesses, always.
Everybody that I've ever talked to about you, who knew you before you hit it big, says that he's exactly the same guy he always
Is that right, Kent? Yeah, this is my old friends, Kent, yeah. I'm the same jerk I was back then. Yeah,
The money didn't change him at all.
yeah, right. Oh, I appreciate it. Thanks, Kent.
How do you stay humble? I mean, it can be, money can be intoxicating.
Yeah, I mean, look, when I first really made a lot of money, you kind of ask yourself, what's supposed to change, right? Oh my God, I mean, I always dreamed if I was a millionaire, this, and this. If I was, didn't even conceive of being a billionaire, it must be all different. And I realized just watching people around me and others, people who were successful, those people that were happy when they were broke, they were really happy when they were rich. And those people who were miserable when they were broke, chances are the money made their lives a little bit easier, but they were still miserable people. I mean, we all know people who have done well in business. If they're a jerk, they're a jerk, right? If they're just pissed off at life, they're just pissed off at life. And when I was broke and we were running around living in the village and 6 guys and sleeping on the floor, literally we used to go to, we'd go out, we wouldn't take more than $20, and then for dinner, we would go to Tom Thumb, because at midnight, they reduced the price of the chicken packs down to $1.29. And so literally, I probably shouldn't say this publicly, but we'd be like, never mind. I give myself in trouble, I can't get Ken in trouble. But yeah, and so, but it was fun. I loved every minute of it. And money can do a lot of things. I mean, I've come home with my lights off. You name it. Just the stuff that happens. And it didn't make me unhappy. It just made things a little bit more difficult. But, it's like when someone asks me what happens if you would have won that lottery, right? If you weren't happy before you won it, you weren't going to be happy after you won it. If you were happy when you were broke, you were going to be the happiest MF in the whole wide world, right? Because there's a whole lot more smiles that'll come your way.
One of my favorite memories, and I'm sure it is for you guys too, is the Dairy Queen story.
Yeah.
Can you tell us that story again?
Yeah, well, in my early days with the Mavs, I used to love to give the NBA a hard time. I used to tell them NBA nothing but attorneys, and that's the way that they would run it. And so there was a time when I got mad at one of the officials, and which still happens every now and then. Maybe last night in Toronto, but that's a different issue. Oh, thanks. There we go. Oh, look at that.
How about that?
Me. Okay. And so I said publicly about an official that they were so bad. The head of officials was so bad at managing his officials, I wouldn't hire him to run a Dairy Queen. And then Dairy Queen's like, that's an insult. If you think, you're so good, come run a Dairy Queen for a day. So I was like, okay. I like Dairy Queen. Give me a free Blizzard and I'm all yours, And so they're like, okay, get here at 6:30 in the morning. Well, that was problematic in and of itself. But so I show up to Dairy Queen in Capel at 6:30 in the morning, and they teach me how to make my Blizzards. It's 9-1-7 to get your curly Q, so it's 9-1-7. And I teach you how to turn your Blizzards upside down to prove that you made it right. I got this. And so I just thought I'd just have some fun spending a day at Dairy Queen. Well, this guy, Paris Chapman, who owned the Dairy Queen, was smart. He called every media outlet in the universe. By 7 in the morning, there were helicopters. No one in the right mind goes to Dairy Queen at 7 in the morning, right? But all of a sudden, there was a line over a mile long, and I'm like, oh my God. Katie Couric's on the phone from the Today Show, and all these people, and she's yelling at me, how could you take advantage of these officials and be so mean to them? I'm like, seriously? Bam. So that's how the Dairy Queen came about.
Okay, so you have a reputation for not really caring what people think. And I think entrepreneurs, they get a lot of advice from well-meaning people, friends, family. What's your advice when friends and loved ones are telling you something and your heart is telling you something else? How do you stay focused?
Look, there's always going to be that push and pull of trying to find balance, family. Should you start a company? Should you not start a company? And, what I've learned, there's this guy that was a basketball coach when I was in Indiana, Bobby Knight was the coach. Some of you may remember, most probably don't anymore, but he used to say, everybody's got the will to win, right? No one starts the company thinking they're going to fail. I got this. I know this is going to be huge. This is going to be big. Everybody's got the will to win, but it's only those with the will to prepare that do win. So the difference is, did I do my homework? Am I prepared? If someone else were to walk in the room that was in that same industry, who knew more about the business? Me or them? Who knew more about the products? Me or them? I used to pull all-nighters learning. I still read manuals, software manuals. It's crazy. With artificial intelligence happening so rapidly, you got to learn it if you're going to be in business. It's like, in the 80s and 90s, you had to learn the PCs and then the internet and then mobile. And now if you don't understand AI, you're going to be at a disadvantage. And so, I'm teaching myself just like each and every one of you. I'm reading every single day. I'm doing tutorials. Literally, I'm doing machine learning tutorials on Amazon. I'm doing, watching videos on YouTube, how to do a neural network. It's just part of the drill. And if you're going to be successful, you have to ask yourself, if someone else in my business walked in the door, who's better prepared, me or them? Because if you're competing against me, I'm going to kick your ass, right? You better recognize that I'm going to be working hard, even to this day. And it's like, well, Mark, you've got money, you got this, but I'm competitive. That's what I think has helped make me successful. It's like a sport. I have a little book. It's called How to Win at the Sport of Business. Business is the ultimate sport. You compete 24 by. I say it's like Dirk, right? I'm like 48 minutes. You practice a couple hours most days, not even every day. Business, it's 24/7 by 365, and there's somebody in the Microsoft store trying to kick my ass, So, one of my sayings, I got all these little corny sayings over the years. One of my work like someone's trying to take it all away from you, because that's the reality. Someone's trying to compete with you. Now, if you get lucky and you're in a business with no competition, okay, great, but that's 1 in a billion. Someone's always competing with you, and so if you don't do the work, how do you think you're going to win? What makes you so special, you got to be self-aware. And part 2 to all that is you can't lie to yourself. As entrepreneurs, we lie to ourselves. And like if you find yourself describing your product and service by using ers and s, we're better. No one says they're worse. Oh yeah, I'm starting this company. My product is so bad, it's awful. Please buy it. No. Right? So if you're saying it's better, the best, the fastest, the cheapest, someone can always be a little bit faster. Look around you here. Pre-order the new Surface Studio 2. It's a great product, right? I just got my daughter a Surface Pro. Great product. But they're competing against Apple, and it's an ongoing war, right? It's an ongoing battle. And all business is. And to me, that's what makes it fun. So be prepared, be be excited, understand it, be ready to sell.
One of the quotes that I heard, I watched a dozen of your interviews, and you said something that I thought was, no, it's brilliant. He said, stand outside your own business, and if I wanted to attack my own business, where is my vulnerabilities?
How do I kick my own ass?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you got to ask yourself, if I was competing with myself, what would I do? How would I compete with myself? Where are my vulnerabilities? You know, how can I outsell? How can I go, you know, I can look at someone looked at my customer base and they walked in the door to one of my customers. What would they do? You do that to your competitors, of course they do it to you, but if you can do it and preempt them and beat them to the punch, you have a big advantage.
So Mozart famously could compose an entire symphony in his mind. When you walk into a restaurant or a store, are you already kind of reworking their business plan?
Always. Have you ever watched Shark Tank? So anybody here watch Shark Tank? Yeah, you know it's on Sunday nights now, 9 o'clock ABC, Channel 8. Tune in this Sunday. Charles Barkley is our guest shark. But for the longest time on Shark Tank, till they got used to me, Kevin in particular, Mr. Not So Wonderful, he would always give me a hard time. Cuban, you're just rewriting their business plan. And always, I can walk in, every store I walk into, I mean, that's the first thing I scout, you know, every business I deal with, I mean, I'm always at, okay, what would I be doing differently? What are they doing that's smart? What can I learn from it? What can I steal? I mean, I don't care. If it's a good idea, I'll steal it from anywhere, you know? Why? You know, like I talked about walking through bookstores or, you know, now online, all it takes is one little morsel of information to make your company better. You know, that's why I try to read as much as I can, because if I can just pick up one idea, because most people, they get tunnel vision and they just get caught in themselves and stick, you know, to the couple things that they're always doing, and they lose track that things are changing, and I've got to always be upgrading and improving, and you know, you've always got to push the envelope. How would I kick my own ass? And you got to not lie to yourself. You know, you can't say, well, they're not, I got this, they're not going to beat me. There's always somebody who can come up with a better idea. You just got to do it better.
We just want to remind everybody we're being broadcast in all of the Microsoft stores, and so this has been seen by tens of thousands of people right now.
Right. Everybody got up early, right? Yeah.
All right. You love to compete, and in your book you talk about your business being a sport. Do you ever allow yourself to get comfortable? Can you see yourself just kind of no?
No. What fun is that? Yeah. You know, I mean, look, do I take time to refresh every now and then? Yeah, but you know, when I was first getting started, I went 7 years without a vacation until we went to Mexico. You know, and it just, which was fun. But yeah, I mean, even now, you know, whether it's the Mavs or it's any of my businesses, it's like, what can I do? You know, and look, the Mavs went through a lot of issues this past year. I was absentee and missed a lot of things and should have been more involved. And so there's always room for improvement. And just like my experience with the Mavs, I brought in somebody smarter. And I think one of the challenges that I've had, just to be brutally honest, is in hiring people. You know, you talk about, do you get comfortable? It's not so much that I got comfortable, whether it was the Mavs front office or other businesses. It's just like, okay, I wasn't doing the operation. I just trusted people to do whatever they do. And, you know, I learned a lesson that I've got to stay more involved in not just the companies that I run, you know, or that I just started, but also the companies that I'm an investor in. And so, you know, you live and you learn.
Okay, give us one lesson that you've learned from each one of the sharks.
None. How not to do. I'd say the most competitive, I'm probably Lori, well, let's see, in terms of Lori and Barbara are probably the people I pay the most attention to. Lori, because she's great at selling on QVC and she's got a good eye for products. Barbara can't multiply 5 times 5, right? But she's got a great eye for people. Great eye, right? When someone walks in the room, she can size them up and understand them in a nanosecond, and that's a great skill that she has. Damon, you know, he's smart. He's got his areas. I don't know why Robert is there. He's a nice guy. Kevin's there for laughs. He's so much fun to pick on. We all get along really, really well. They're all really, really good people. But yeah, none of them are competition.
All right. Is there a company that stands out in your mind that you wish you had invested in on Shark Tank?
You know, everybody always asks, oh, what's the one that got away? And the reality is, let me give you some background on what happens. First, we get set up there. I get there about 8. Everybody else gets there about 7 for makeup, obviously. No matter how much they try, that's not going to work. And so I just, put on my suit, cruise in, sit down, and we start filming 8:30 to 9. And then they just bring in deal after deal after deal. We don't film episodes, we just film deals. And so a deal, when they walk in the door, we know nothing about them. They'll say, here comes Mark and Kent, and then boom, they start pitching us. In real time, the deals, if it's really, really stupid, it might be over in 20 minutes, probably 30 minutes. If it's intense and there's a lot of money involved, it can go for an hour and a half to 2 hours. And they literally will then edit that down to the 10 minutes you see on TV. And so it can get really intense and really involved. And it's like making any other investment decision. We try to drill in as much as possible. And then they'll package that into a pitch that you see on television. Now, once we say yes to a deal, we have the right to do due diligence. So what will happen a lot of times is they'll be standing up here on the carpet in front of us, and they'll say, I'm selling 1 billion widgets a year, and they only cost me 15 cents to make, and we're selling it for 30 cents. When in reality, they sold 12, And so we get a chance to check that out to make sure that what they're saying is true.
One of my favorite memories is Dancing with the Stars.
Oh.
And, right? I think that took a lot of courage for you to do, and 5 weeks, right?
Longer than that.
How many weeks did you
I made it halfway through, plus the prep weeks. Yeah. Yes, I was on Dancing with the Stars, and it was the scariest thing that I've ever done in my life because it's live. And, I got the grooves and I got the moves, but doing the foxtrot and the whatever, the waltz, that wasn't my core competency. But it was fun. I beat Floyd Mayweather. I'm like, where'd you go, champ? Where'd you go? And so it was a trip. I was literally on the most watched episode of Dancing with the Stars. So this was 10 years ago. 22 million people watched that show. Could you imagine doing a dance live in front of 22 million people? I'm glad I wasn't very smart back then. I mean, it was just like, it was a trip, man. If they ever have a Rejects reunion, I'm there.
Glow is obviously a worldwide networking organization. An old saying that I like is you got to circulate to percolate.
Right.
How important is it for entrepreneurs to be networking?
I mean, networking is selling, right? And networking is improving your access to information and your competitive opportunities. And so the more people you can talk to, whatever the medium, the better. There's no downside. I mean, you've got to manage your time, obviously. What I would encourage you, though, is to be really cautious of just getting too caught up in meetings and phone calls. Right? I try to push everything, or as much as I possibly can, to email, because I can just get more done. I eliminate the, so how's the kids? What you doing? Where'd you go to dinner last week? Or happy birthday? What'd you do? And that's all fine and good, and it's great to be social. But the reality is, like, gotta go, and trying to get shit done, right? And so I really encourage networking. I encourage learning from as many people as you can, going to watch people where you can, watching things on YouTube or wherever. But be diligent with your time, because the most valuable asset you'll never own is your time. You can't get that back. And again, if you're competing, it's an incredible asset. So you've got to use it effectively. And so whatever tools you can use, like I said, I do a lot with email. Now Gmail has snooze and this and that. And the way I kind of manage my information flow is I'll read what I can, and if I have to follow up, I'll snooze it, or follow up immediately. I try to just nail it and get it out of the way. And because I can do it at 1 in the morning or 1 in the afternoon or 6 in the morning, whatever it is, You know, it could be a timeout. If you watch me at a Mavs game and there's a timeout or it's in between quarters, I'm down there killing off some emails and trying to get some stuff done. But if I had to say, well, I'll call you tomorrow, or let's do this via call. My rule of thumb is if you want to meet with me, you better be writing me a check. Period, end of story. Because that's how valuable time is. So you have to really manage your time, because if you don't, you're at a huge disadvantage.
I love it that you're still so accessible. I mean, you put your email out there for everybody, and you answer your own emails. You don't have people do it.
Nope, just me, mcuban@gmail. And I'll tell you exactly what I do, because I know I'll get pitches. You got one paragraph. You get my interest in one paragraph, I'll read the second paragraph. If you keep it going, I'll get to the third. 99% of them, you never hear back from me because that first paragraph didn't ring the bell. That's in a nutshell.
All right. Well, listen, I'm out of questions, so let's get some questions from the audience. Please don't pitch Mark a Shark Tank idea.
No pitches.
Yes, sir.
I'm actually one of the people that do to be honest with you, I've asked you about potentially being put on the Dallas Mavericks about 10 years, so keep that on mind.
All right. The good news is I don't do the hiring, so yeah.
I was like, he's the owner, I need to contact him. We've been emailing back.
Well, cool. I'm glad I responded to you. Thank you.
Definitely, for sure. But I'm a young entrepreneur, 28 years old, family. I
think this sounds like a pitch.
No, hold on. Go ahead.
How do you have a lot of businesses that you're working with, family. How do you like a basic? How do you prioritize all that?
Money. Most money, least money. It's in a nutshell.
Look out for me in 10 years.
Okay.
All right. How about you, sir?
Can you talk, Mark, about the video industry, video entertainment, video sport competition, what's going on out there now?
As far as
The next venue for kids to get involved with versus playing baseball or basketball?
yeah, I mean, esports right now are huge. How many people here play Fortnite? League of Legends. See, League of Legends is actually a lot of hard work, right? League of Legends is hard, but it's a sport. And you know, if you talk to your kids, like my 9-year-old, if he's not, he reads so he can get more time to play Fortnite. You know, that's just in a nutshell. But you might not think that's applicable to each and every one of y'all. We're too old for that or whatever. I get on and I'll play Fortnite. I played League of Legends. I got my butt kicked in no, forget it. It's awful. I was really, really bad. But I had to learn what it was like. So when people are talking about it, I understood it. How can you dismiss, if everybody you know that's, 19 or under or 23 or under is playing Fortnite? Period, end of story. And that's going to impact a lot of businesses, particularly how we watch video. Like television, live streaming, YouTube, Twitch. How many people have used Twitch? Yeah, if you don't, Twitch can potentially be a great way for you to promote your business. It's Twitch. A lot of you haven't even heard of it. It's owned by Amazon. They bought it for $900 million, so they obviously thought it was important. And the way they broadcast League of Legends and 2K, that's more an opportunity for the future of broadcast than, okay, something cool on television. And so understanding, why are kids playing Fortnite? Well, it's not that it's the hardest game. League of Legends is hard, right? When you play 5-on-5 in League of Legends, and the thing about, a lot of esports, for competitive esports, is they change the rules every 90, 120 days. And so because they changed the rules and they're teams of 5 playing against other teams of 5, they practice. So I played in this Legends game, right? League of Legends games, where I was the lousy one and all the other ones were legends and they carried me. But there was this guy that was playing, and I'm like, hey, what's your story? Da-da-da-da-da. We're getting ready to play. He goes, yeah, I just retired. And I'm looking at this guy. And I'm like, maybe he's 28. And he shows me a picture of his girlfriend. Look at this girl. I'm getting married to this girl. It's my fiance. She's hot, isn't she? I'm like, okay, maybe he's not 28. How old are you? I just turned 20. And I'm like, you just turned 20 and you're retiring? He's like, dude, it's a grind. We have to practice. And literally, they put them all in the house. Like when you're playing at the top level of League of Legends, they'll put you in a house and you'll practice 10, 12 hours a day. Now they've cut it down some just because people were getting burned out, but that's why this guy retired at 20, because he was getting burned out. And he was a legend, right? It wasn't like Tony Dorsett came back to play, right? This dude is 20 years old and he retired. And so But the bigger point is things change. Things that consume people's time is changing. Just because, we played, Nintendo doesn't mean, that that's what future generations are going to do. And if you're going to compete and you're going to, try to compete for their mind share, and I'm not even talking about millennials. Millennials are already old, Gen Z and the generations that come up after them, right? How are they consuming? How do they buy things? Like on Shark Tank, the younger they are, the more socially conscious they are. They're going to sell you a pair of socks and then give away a pair. One of my companies is Combat Flip-Flops, a bunch of veterans, and they go to Afghanistan and source the materials and make flip-flops. But for every pair of flip-flops they sell, they contribute to a school for Afghan women, because there's just not a lot of schools for women there. It's just not culturally the way it is. And that's their mission. And there's a mission for almost everything. Why? Because Gen Z and millennials, they don't just want to buy Microsoft. They just don't want to buy Dallas Mavericks. They want to know that that company is socially conscious, because everybody is a brand all day, every day. How? Why? Just look at their Instagram. Just look at their snaps. They're not on Facebook. Their moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas are on Facebook, and they're looking for the next, whatever the next thing is. Because when they post a picture, that's when you hear Drake talking about getting your angles and this and that, right? Because and you see people posing for the perfect picture. You see people falling off of cliffs in Grand Canyons, because they want the perfect Instagram picture. And what they say, like 250 people have died posing for pictures, for selfies, but who they post they are. And so they want you to see that they're wearing Tom's shoes, or they're wearing this brand or that brand, because that's who they are. So if you're getting ready to sell a product and part of your audience is going to be, a younger consumer, what are you doing? And if you're not paying attention because that's not what you do, you'll be on the outside looking in. And so you have to pay attention. You have to try these things. You can download, Fortnite's free. Download it to your phone, play it. You won't look like too much of an idiot. You just use a fake name,
So I have the pleasure of having the feed from the folks that are watching online, so welcome to all of them. And,
Hey.
And then I'll intersperse a question from here in the room.
Sure,
to
fire away.
somebody online,
Yeah, fire
and
away.
I'll bring the mic around. So online, there's a bunch of questions asking you to be to predict the future, I guess, and tell us a little bit about your perception of the housing market and the equity markets. And,
okay.
Are they overvalued? Should we be worried?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, look, anybody who tells you they know what stocks are going to do is lying. Because if they really knew, they wouldn't tell you. They would just go buy long or short and, make a boatload of money. Same with the housing market. But what I can tell you is, as entrepreneurs, if you go out and bust your ass, there's always a market for hustle. There's always a market for great products, always a market for great services. I invest in stocks, but I stick to the companies. I know I pretty much own two companies, Netflix and Amazon, and probably should have owned Microsoft because they're killing it too. But I can afford to lose money in the market. You shouldn't be in the market if you can't afford to lose it, because in a lot of respects it's gambling. It's not that it's bad. There's a lot of ways to make money there, but there's also a lot of ways to lose money. Look at it this way. You can spend your whole life saving all this money you made from work and your business or whatever, and you get up to your nest egg and you think you're supposed to put it in the market, and you think this is the one way to really make it grow. But what took you 5, 10, 20 years to build, you can lose in 30 seconds in the stock market. Would you rather, I got a chance, right? I'm cool, I'm in the market. Or now that interest rates are going up, would you rather, all right, I'm making 3%, boy, but I sleep like a baby. I know that nest egg is there. There's this old movie, Lost in America, where they gamble away the nest egg. Watch that movie. Because unless you have, no one sells you a stock expecting it to go down. Yeah, I made enough money on the stock. I'm going to sell it to you so you can make more money and I'll leave money on the table. Or, yeah, you know what? My house is really, really nice. This investment house or this building or whatever. I don't want to make any more money on it. I'll sell it to you because I think it's going to go up further, but I don't care. No, that's not the way it works. Whoever's selling you whatever, it's not because they think that you're going to make more money from it. So be careful. That's
Hey,
great.
Mark, I'm a sales trainer, but tell us a little bit about how
You sound like a sales trainer.
tell us a little bit, how do you adapt in the marketing space? Because sales is gold, but marketing, folks really think they're platinum sometimes. And
Right.
I also want to know a little bit more about how has your leadership style changed in the last year?
Well, two questions there. First, I always try to, I guess, to answer your question best, there's marketing. To me, marketing is creating a funnel for sales. I'm very transactional. Brands are built by your execution of your business, right? Do you do a good job? Do you have a happy customer, right? If people are happy with what you're doing, that's your brand. You can spend all the money in the world, but if you're a restaurant and there's, somebody gets some disease, eating there, doesn't matter how much money you spent, right? Or if you get a 1-star rating, you have no brand. So I always use marketing to funnel. In terms of sales, I think one of my big skills that I've learned over the years is I always try to put myself in the shoes of my customer. A lot of salespeople try to think, why am I selling and what am I trying to sell, as opposed to why would they buy? If I walked into this store and I'm looking around, what's the goal of the store? What is it that I can do to help make them more profitable, more competitive, give them an advantage? That's what I try to do, or make their life easier, or make them happier. What can I do to help them achieve their goals? Because selling isn't about convincing. The whole thing, I can sell ice to Eskimos, that's bullshit, right? Because Eskimos don't need ice. But if I can put myself in the shoes and get that Eskimo a warmer or some heat, you got to put yourself in the shoes of the consumer all the time. It's not about us as salespeople, it's about who you're trying to sell to. In terms of what I've learned in the past year, like I alluded to earlier, the Mavs had a lot of diversity issues that I didn't know and should have known. And we, unfortunately, it'll haunt me forever that a lot of people got hurt at one of my companies. But along the way, in terms of looking at diversity, I hired somebody incredible, Cent Marshall, that if I would have hired her 20 years ago, my life would have been 1,000 times easier. But, I learned that diversity isn't about a checklist. When I was forced this past year to look back at our Mavs sales force, and this is a big lesson for everybody here. I looked and I had guys that look like me trying to sell into communities that look like a lot of you, right? And I had, guys that look like me trying to sell to moms. Well, let's put together a mom's package. Oh, okay, George or Paul or Ringo, right? No, that's not the way it works. And so what we've changed dramatically, and I've tried to introduce this into some of my Shark Tank companies, I've tried to introduce it to a couple of the companies I'm on the board of, is there's a lot of communities. Well, the Mavs are, again, a perfect example. There are Indian communities, there are other Asian communities, Hispanic, Black, whatever it may be. There's so many diverse communities that what I learned is it's a lot easier to sell to them if you have somebody who is them. And if I have somebody who doesn't look like me, rather than trying to get them to do the things that I do, take advantage of their skill set, right? Who do they know that they can already be selling to? If you're Chinese, is there a Chinese community here, or something that fits, or whatever it is? If you're a polo player, or a lacrosse player, or whatever, cricket player, is there a community there that we can reach? If you belong to this church or that church, can we reach, work with you to reach those communities? Because people want to buy from people that they trust and that they know. And people understand, things about their community that someone who's just a marketer is not going to understand. So diversity is an opportunity that I really didn't take advantage of. Having people, there's so many unique communities that we try to force into, our little silos of what we're used to and the way we've always done things. When there's, a huge base of consumers out there that really, with the Mavs in particular, we just left money on the table. So now we're selling tickets into, a diverse range of communities using people who are part of those communities. And it gets a lot easier, and so that's a big part of what I've learned.
So Mark, the question is, I'm a sales guy myself.
Uh-huh. And you're a well-dressed sales guy, by the way. Go Mav.
So my daughter is here, she's 13, and she wants to be an entrepreneur.
Uh-huh.
Given all the automation in the world and people are going less to malls, buy online, so what's the advice for me as a father to my child on the courses that he should be taking to be successful?
There's always opportunity everywhere. So, for a 13-year-old, my 15-year-old, my 12-year-old, when it comes to, okay, if Mark, if you were a kid today, and like I said, I'm kind of a 12-year-old at heart, so I can relate. If your 12-year-old self today, 13, 15-year-old self today, what would you do? There are so many opportunities. I'd be killing it. Look at Alexa, right? First thing I would do was I would learn everything I possibly could about Alexa and doing Alexa skills, and I would go door to door. Hi, do you know what Alexa is? Let me show you. Do you have Wi-Fi? Can I come in and just connect it to you and show you voice activation? And oh, by the way, let me show you how I connect it to your house. And oh, by the way, let me do these particular skills so that they can do these things for you that are automated. And you know what? It's only $129, and I'll just charge you for X, Y, and Z if you like it. And if not, I'll take it back, give you your money back, sell it to somebody else. I'd be all over that. I'd be going to car dealers now because they're starting to integrate voice activation. What's Microsoft's? Yeah. And so, everybody's got, Amazon, Microsoft, Google Home, they all have got voice activation opportunities, and they're integrating them into autos now. And you couldn't find anybody anybody here written in an Alexa skill? An Alexa skill, Google Home skill. There you go, a little bit. So they're easy. Like I wrote some skills just to mess with my kids, right? So, we use Alexa Home, or Alexa, and you can say, Alexa, what's the weather today? Alexa, da 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 da. But my son, my 9-year-old son, I wrote one that it's the answer. If he says, Alexa, who is Jake Cuban? Jeff's my brother. So my 9-year-old is named Jake. So who is Jake Cuban? Or my Alyssa's my 12-year. Who is Alyssa Cuban? And and so for my 9-year-old Jake, it comes back and Alexa says, Jake Cuban is known as the fart master of the universe. It gets his attention, right? And so my wife is like, oh, you can't do that. And I'm like, yes, I can. For my 15-year-old, Alexa's like, oh, Alexis thinks her aunt doesn't stink and da-da-da-da-da. And so there's so many opportunities that the new technology creates. And just little things like, Microsoft's spreadsheets now, they have some built-in machine learning and neural network type stuff where it'll optimize things, and learning how to use spreadsheets like that to take advantage of those things, that when you walk into a business and you can say, let me show you, what artificial intelligence is, right? Let me show you some basic ways how I can introduce this just using Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets, right? They all have little features available. There are so many ways to take all this new technology, and just by a show of hands, we saw that people haven't even tried what they can do with Alexa. That's a missed opportunity. And if you don't know about voice activation, you're going to fall further behind. That goes back to what I was saying earlier about competing and staying up and understanding. It takes time. It really, really, really does.
Mark, you said everybody was a brand, right?
Right.
And we started a company, and we believe that in the future, everyone who you said is a brand will be demanding to make revenue from social media, from any kind of interactions they have on the internet. So what do you do when a company comes to the opportunity to create a product that solves that problem, gets an investor, and the investor tries to take the company out of the founder, and then you say, no, we can't do this? How do you get back to starting?
Sales, right? If you're selling and making money, your investor's happy. Your investors, I don't know your circumstances, but if I'm an investor and I'm asking for something back, it means I don't think it's working, obviously. So you've got to get to a point where the investor thinks it's working and it works for you.
Well, if the investor didn't think it was working, they would be trying to acquire 86% of the company off you.
Well,
so they've seen the future. They've seen the possibilities. and they're trying to scoop the company completely.
Then you need a good lawyer.
And we're in court for that.
There you go. Good luck.
Hi, Mark. I'm back here.
What's up?
My name is Jules Clark. I've heard about you in these sports a couple times.
Appreciate that.
It's fun. It's good. I don't play Fortnite, but I know a lot about it, weirdly enough. So my question is for this. I'm a young creative entrepreneur, and I'm trying to master the art of a cold email. What captures your attention in that first paragraph?
What's in it for me? What's in it for me? The same thing that captures your attention. You know, why should I be interested?
So would you say it's all in the research you do about your own audience and trying to connect it to the
Or individualizing it. Okay. What makes it personal and important? I mean, you get emails every day, all day, right?
Yeah, but they're not trying to get money from you.
Well, but they're trying to. If you're a writer, right? They're trying to get you to write about them, right? What is it that gets you to say, okay, that's interesting. I'll write about them, as opposed to that's boring. I have no interest in that. Those are the things. Whatever gets your attention, it's the same. It's the same process. And the other thing I tell you, there's lots of tools out there that allow you to track what works and what gets open and what doesn't.
Great tool.
Which one?
Nixmax. You can track. I've seen it keep open my email.
There you go, right? But learn. And that brings up another really important point. Data matters. If you're not iterating and learning, you're following behind. So tracking stuff, and tell us the name of the tool again?
It's Nixmax. It's totally free. Actually, my homie, my mentor, Christiana, showed me that tool.
Hi, Christiana. She'll pitch it to you, so there you go.
She's awesome. But yeah, Nixmax.
I have a great question, just kind of going off of what you just said about opening up an email.
You guys ask the question so everyone else can hear.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry. So I have a question.
I'll repeat the question.
Perfect. I have a question about looking at something and saying, what's in it for me?
Right.
So first of all, Mike sent me a 3 shirt, so thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Christiana, my partner over there.
Oh, you guys are all related, huh?
Yeah,
Christiana owns the world here.
Right now.
Yeah.
Abe's been doing an event with us and a speaker event.
Cool.
So my question, looking at Glow, I love what Michelle's doing. Looking at Glow, how do you see an organization and say, I want to speak in that organization? I have multiple companies. There's different markets I can hit, but why would I want to speak for this organization?
They bought Mavs tickets. Right? Where's Michelle at? Right? That's, how do you get my attention? Right? Listen, honestly, if you say you're a Mavs season ticket holder, you're going to get my attention, right?
No,
Period.
Speaking about your attention, the biggest celebration after the Mavs won a decade ago was not done anywhere else but in Liberia, organized by Doc Lawson. Now, speaking about that, how do you capture that audience you have in Africa? That's number one. Number two is this. Technology seems to be going in geometric progression. Is human capital development meeting up to speed?
Okay, a bunch of questions there, right? In terms of capturing Africa or anywhere overseas, just like I was talking about with diversity, you need somebody who knows that market. You know, and I don't do, other than the MBA, which is global. You know, we just came back from China. I don't do a lot overseas just because I don't have the people or the time or the inclination. One of the things I've always lived by: win the battles you're in first, and then when I win that battle, then I look to take on others. In terms of human capital, I think there's a ton of opportunities. I think, you know, I've invested in a lot of socially aware companies that have gone to Kenya and some other places in terms of from telecommunications to other things, because there's a lot of opportunities there, but I've just made the investments. I'm not the expert there by a long shot. But, you know, and a lot of it really, probably my biggest global opportunity is the Mavs, and I defer to the NBA and participate where I can.
Okay, we've got time for just 2 more questions. This gentleman in the back. No. Gentleman in the back right here.
Thank you. Coming from the restaurant business, and I did meet you here in Dallas someplace back in
82, you remember? Oh, wow.
I'll try to speak a little bit more projection as well.
There you are.
I love the story then about the Dairy Queen and how you received the owner there to be able to utilize the marketing technique. Would you ever accept part ownership of a company without investing in it?
Right. So I get offered all the time. I'll give you X percentage of my company. I just want your resources. I don't want.
Just to say that you own it.
Yeah, same difference, right? Yeah, just the PR play. No, no, I don't. Just what you know, you get what you pay for, and there's always, you know, from my perspective, if you think back to what I said earlier, what's my most valuable asset? Time and branding and everything. And so, you know, I've made the mistake more than one time where I've made a small investment because I was interested in the company, and the reality was all they wanted to do was pop my name out there because of the press releases and the idea that it would get picked up, and that made it a mistake on my part. So
Okay,
yeah,
we've got one question right here.
Hi.
Hi.
So you give importance to the sales, but what about the research? Because research is the next thing, research and innovation.
Research?
Research and innovation, because we will sell something for now, but after 10 years it will be isolated, like obsolete. So how important to give it to research and innovation?
Well, like I said, you have to learn everything about your industry, and so they're not mutually exclusive because once you create the next thing, somebody's got to sell it. There's a lot of great art.